You're in the 06010. Focus. Fantasy Focus.
The Fantasy Focus Football Podcast is presented by Geico, and we are on to Week 15. It is December.
Not all of us.
15th. Not all of us. Well, do you want to talk about it right now? Field Yates, Matthew Barris, Stephania, and of course, Daniel Dopp. You want to talk about it or no? You want to talk about it?
At some point, I may get into a rant.
Bound. We have, we always say we've got a jam-packed show, and sometimes it's lip service. Today, it's not. Today, we have a jam-packed show because we have not just a recap of last night's insane game.
Dude.
We've got some waiver wire stuff because we also have a bunch of news and just a sort of a housekeeping note. For those that don't live in New England, you may not realize that we have a massive snowstorm heading our way here on Wednesday night into Thursday. It happens a few times a year. We've all been living here for much of our lives. We're used to it. We're going to move Thursday's show to Friday because of the travel, getting in. It's just a lot. It's more sensible. And in some ways, it might actually be
We're going to be
benefit.
safe. Better safe than sorry.
That's right. And it might be beneficial because we'll have even more information on injuries. We'll have an opportunity to discuss anything that could happen on Thursday Night Football. So this is our last show until Friday. Heads up, bookkeeping. In the meantime, follow us all on Twitter or Matthew on TikTok, where he is, as I am told, basically the Juju Smith-Schuster of fantasy football.
I'm getting there on the TikTok, by the way. I'm at 10,000 followers. Like, I'm getting there. Like, I'm not, whatever, but I'm trying. Like, so if you've ever wanted to see, like, a middle-aged guy do TikTok,
right,
like, at Matthew Berry TMR on the TikTok.
Sign me up.
Please
Can't wait.
Please give me a pity.
That's compelling.
Here's listen. Twitter, listen.
Middle-aged guy on TikTok.
I give actual useful information on Twitter at Matthew Berry TMR.
That's a debatable
and I'm pretty,
but no big
and
deal.
I think I'm pretty good at the gram. To be honest, I'm pretty good at the gram
Especially
at Matthew Berry
beignets are
TMR
involved.
on
Beignets
Instagram.
Or like Devontae
It's
Adams
always
photos.
interesting,
Good.
Stephania, the beignet photos. Like sometimes the photos may be blurry, but it's always interesting and fun. On the gram at Matthew Berry TMR, every once in a while I'll post a thirst trap photo as well. But the TikTok, I'm figuring it out. So I'm asking for, listen, I'm just saying, here's what I'm saying. The Twitter, if you want to follow me on the Twitter, if you want to follow me on Instagram or Facebook as well, at Matthew Berry TMR, any of those places, I think it will be useful to you.
Hey, yeah.
I am asking for a pity follow on TikTok.
Gotcha.
I don't know that my content is follow worthy, but I'm asking for a pity follow because it's the only thing that impresses my kids. And if I have any parents out there, you know that all you're trying to do is just impress your kids for at least one more day. So that's all I'm asking for. I'm asking for a pity follow.
Okay, don't bother.
I'm not proud.
Me. I'm not worth it. Anyways, let's talk about
At Field Yates on the gram and the Twitter at Stephania_ESPN on Twitter, at Daniel Dopp on Twitter as well, at Stephania Bell on the gram, and at Something to Break on the gram as well.
Really well done. Like
he knows all those.
So succinctly. I'm so impressed. Let's talk about last night's game, and the Ravens win a wild game. And there was so many last-minute fantasy miracles, perhaps miracles that were overturned by the opposite of a miracle. Let's get right into it as the Ravens do win a game. Final score is a 5-point margin, 42-42 with 7 seconds left in the game, and the Ravens somehow won by 5.
Not so much to others.
Yes, but a star looked like a star last night. As our generation rising is brought to you by EA Sports, NFL Madden 21, and Lamar Jackson. I remember you. You last night were the player that we watched during 2019. Better late than never, as they say, as he had 34.9 fantasy points. He had 124 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He has 7 straight games with 50-plus rushing yards, does Lamar Jackson. It's probably too late, Matthew. Your investment in Lamar Jackson did not pay off in the middle to the back end of the second round. But if somehow you jerry-rigged your way to the playoffs, Lamar Jackson maybe carried you to the next round.
He 1,000% did. I'm in the Bristol Benchwarmers League, 14-team keeper league.
Is that the first ever league? Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No. That's a different one. This is one that's run by Not Cool Keith.
Right.
14-team half-point PPR, and Thirsty Kyle got defeated in the playoffs last night by.
You needed Lamar Jackson. I had Dan Bailey sink my ship before the week even started.
I understood, but I just wanted you, even though I beat you barely, this is true.
Is that angry Kyle?
Angry
Kyle. That's about as angry as he
Saltiest
gets.
I've ever heard him. Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Right.
His only job's to kick the ball. He misses all 4 kicks. Like, what are you doing for me here?
Yeah. Poor Kyle. Anyway, so like I Gronk spiked the ball on you with Lamar Jackson last night.
Yeah.
So I'm moving on. I'm on to week 15 in that particular league. He was great, and I think more to come, Field. I think that's more important is that, they play Jacksonville next week, and then the Giants in week 16, and for those that play in ESPN standard leagues, which go to week 17, at Cincinnati. So
great finish. Great finish.
It's a great finish
here. The stakes are huge. The stakes are huge right now because they need to play their way into the playoffs still.
And what was interesting to me about Lamar Jackson last night is, and I don't have a stat to quantify this.
Okay.
Lamar Jackson looked like a star last night. I know that seems insane to sort of say, well, obviously he's a star. The guy's on the cover of Madden. He was the NFL MVP last year. But for times at this point last year, he didn't look like the same guy. You're like, where's that it factor? Where's that mojo, that, oh my God, did you see that from Lamar Jackson, which we saw all of last year. And I felt like last night we're like, oh yeah, that's that guy.
Yeah. Well, and they need to win games. So they aren't blowing teams out by 25 points throughout the entirety of it. Last night was an example of that. A very competitive game with Cleveland. So he has nearly 35 fantasy points. And if he's your quarterback, he advanced you to the next round. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting closer to J.K. Dobbins being a thing. How about this? Yeah. Mark Ingram played the very first snap of the game for the Ravens last night, and then bye-bye, no more playing. Didn't play for the rest of the game on offense. Makes me think maybe.
Is that ceremonial, you think? That he gets the first snap. You're the veteran. You get the start. Monday Night Football.
Yeah. I don't know if he has a starting game streak. When he's been healthy, he has always started this game. Yeah. But my guess is that if he does have one, that's exactly what happened last night. We're talking about the heartbeat of the locker room being Mark Ingram. But it's J.K. Dobbins last night who has 35 snaps compared to just 15 for Gus Edwards. 53 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown last night for J.K. Dobbins. I'm not in the minority. I think everybody's been saying this, but my thought last night was every Ravens running back snap carry needs to go to J.K. Dobbins.
Listen, if the free Aaron Jones hashtag wasn't being used still for Aaron Jones, we would transfer it to J.K. Dobbins, and we've been talking about it all year long. Free J.K. Dobbins. I don't understand. He's the best guy on that team. He's the most versatile running back as well. Gus Edwards, nice player, but he is a north-south. He's a north-south between the tackles guy who doesn't give you much else than that. He is a guy that he gets you what's blocked. He's solid, you know what I mean? But J.K. Dobbins has a chance to be special in this league, and so I think the Ravens are finally realizing that. And so here's a guy that's had double-digit carries in 5 of the past 6 games. He's scored in each of the last 3, and so, to me, again, I haven't done my rankings yet, but considering they're playing Jacksonville this week, I think it's going to be hard for me to keep J.K. Dobbins out of my top 20.
Yeah, I agree. It might be a little bit outside my top 20, borderline for me.
He's definitely top 25, and definitely somebody who's a very viable flex at worst. He's a very viable flex play this week. The question, to me, the more interesting question is, what do you do with Gus Edwards? So, real nice game last night, 2 touchdowns, over 18 fantasy points. 15 snaps.
Yeah, I think if you are desperate, and I don't, it's always so weird, right? Because it's week 15. If you're desperate, you're probably not desperate if you're playing in the semifinals of your fantasy league, right? You probably have a good option already. So Gus Edwards would be and I don't know what the circumstances are, but if you are a little bit desperate and you've been frustrated by your lack of running back production recently, maybe you have James Conner as one of your running backs. You're like, I can't play James Conner right now. The guy never scores, right?
Yeah, you can't.
Then Gus Edwards would be the kind of player that you're sort of banking on the possibility they run through the Jaguars, and it's 42-7 is the final score. He falls in the end zone twice. But let's just we have so much to get to.
Real quickly, by the way, James Conner against Cincinnati is going to score a ton of points against Cincinnati on Monday night against, now that everyone that has him has been eliminated after his 0.8 performance.
He'll go crazy.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. So 3 straight games of 13-plus fantasy points for Marquise Brown. I think, though, what we've seen over the past 3 weeks is more luck than I do think a turning of the tide. So let's go back to these 3 games because we can recall them. First one was against the Steelers where Trace McSorley throws them that pass, 70-yard touchdown late in the game, right?
Right.
And they ended up, it was competitive, but still, that was okay, sweet. Second game against the Cowboys, okay, whatever. He scores a touchdown. Last night, it's like
Scored a touchdown against the Cowboys. Everyone scores a touchdown against the Cowboys. By the way, I had 3 a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you missed it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like, seriously, like, who scores? Everyone scores against the Cowboys.
2 catches on 6 targets last night with 2 drops too. Like, he's a fast player. He's an okay player. He's solid. He might grow into something much more. But I think I think you've gotten more fortunate than you have like benefited over the past 3 weeks.
In a game in which the Ravens put up 45 points, he had 6 targets.
Yeah, no.
In a game, I mean, now game script was weird there, obviously, because they were up for a long, long time, and then they were down, and then, whatever, Lamar Jackson comes back from whatever was going on back in the locker room and, comes and throws a touchdown. And listen, that's what Marquise Brown can do. You get him in space. He's got incredible speed, and he can do it. But in terms of consistent fantasy production, the positive was he's the next Tyreek Hill.
Right.
The problem is that he's honestly become the next Deshaun Jackson, which is like when he hits, like with a Trace McSorley, like all he needs is one play, right? Games to Steelers, 170-yard pass for a touchdown, great. But he's not somebody that you feel like, you know what, he's going to get you a 6 for 80 day.
Yeah, it's going to be very much
boom or
big play.
bust.
It's very big play dependent. As is not the case, though, for his teammate Mark Andrews, who had 5 catches on 78 yards, 12.8 fantasy points. Good to see him back, obviously, having recently spent some time on the COVID-19 list. Let's get right to the Browns. Another great game from Baker Mayfield last night. His best game of the season in terms of fantasy points, 30 in total. 3 total touchdowns. One of them, of course, was of the rushing variety. 343 passing yards against an excellent Ravens defense. Something, Matthew, I think this is much more of a real football story than a fantasy football story. You're not starting next week, are you?
Probably not. At the Giants, Giants defense playing really, really well.
Yeah.
Whatever. The game against Arizona, I put that blame on Daniel Jones and the offense. Like, Daniel Jones shouldn't have been out there.
Yeah.
Terrible decision by the Giants coaching staff. Happy as a Washington fan that they did that, giving the lead back in the NFC East to my Washington professional football team. But, it would be tough. I think what Baker's elevation has done, though, is, listen, you're already starting the running backs. But I think you feel better about Jarvis Landry. If you're in a deeper league, you feel better about Rashard Higgins.
Right, yeah.
And, by the way, if you're in a keeper league, like I have Baker Mayfield in our Dynasty League where I've been tanking for Trevor. I feel better about him. Like, feels like, okay, now he feels like he's gotten, Kevin Stefanski's offense. And now you think about next year, gets OBJ back, another year of, having Austin Hooper there who he didn't have last night. I know they like Bryant as well. So they suddenly have some pieces there for this passing offense. But I agree with you. I think it's, unless you're in a 2-quarterback league, a deep league, I would much prefer Jalen Hurts or, even Mitchell Trubisky, like even some of these other guys that are out there, I think, than to Baker Mayfield. But it was an impressive performance. He's now had multiple touchdown passes in 3 straight games. And, 343 passing yards, 2 touchdowns and a rushing touchdown in a game in which the Browns ran all over Baltimore.
All over them. Do you want to do the Kareem Hunt thing now or no? You want to do it or no?
Well, we can't. Look, here's the thing. We probably don't have time for this.
Whatever.
Whatever. That's fine.
You nearly had a miracle.
I nearly had a miracle. I'm in the War Room League, as you guys know, and it is my most important league. It is the league that I play in with Field, with Stephania, with our producer Matt Harrington, with Shefty, with Mort, with Lewis Riddick, with Rex Ryan, with Teddy Bruschi, like all the names of people that you watch on TV here, and a lot of our producers as well, really smart NFL guys, men and women. And so it's a highly competitive league. It is 16 teams. We've talked about it all, all year long. I was second last year. I finished second. I lost to Scott Clark, all biz, at all_biz, the Adam Schefter of the War Room League. Mm-hmm. This year, I was first in points. I was 10-3. I basically led the league wire to wire. I had an amazing team. Tannehill, Aaron Jones, Kareem Hunt, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, Allen Robinson, my flex, Hayden Hurst, my tight end, Colts defense, one of the best defenses, Jason Myers is a kicker. And so I played against the 8th seed. The 8th seed Field. I should win. Had Had Michael Gallup not scored a stupid touchdown last week against the Ravens, I would have played Rex Ryan, and it would have been by 70 points. But because Michael Gallup scores that dumb baloney touchdown, Rex Ryan ends up becoming the 7th seed, and I play the 8th seed. And the 8th seed is our friend Seth Markman, and Seth is a former champion of this league, but Seth has had an up and down year in the league.
He's got a good team, though.
He has 2 great players. He has Devontae Adams and Travis Kelce. So he has the best tight end, and he has the best wide receiver. His running backs were a work in progress. He spent a 4th-round pick on Cam Akers, who has been terrible all year long until week 14. He got 20 points from the Arizona defense.
Who's been good?
The Arizona defense has been good, but you don't expect
Against
20
Daniel
points.
Jones.
Yeah. The previous 5 weeks, the Arizona Cardinals defense had scored 23 points. But this week they scored 20.
Well, they played Daniel Jones and the Giants.
They played Daniel Jones and the Giants. And so, Deebo Samuel gets hurt on the first play. And so Brandon Ayuk gets 16 targets field.
But he had 17 fantasy points in 5 shots.
I understand, but, I mean, come on. 16 targets.
No, I will say
Ayuk
this.
is a good player.
This is exactly where I was last year. I led the league in points. Last year snuck into the playoffs.
Yep.
And you beat me in the first round last year.
Thanks to
After
Jameis.
I led the league in fantasy points. So I know exactly what you're talking about right now.
I know you do, but let's focus this on me. This is about me.
Got it.
Your time for a rant was last year.
Well, here's the good news.
This is all about me now.
The good news
and
I have
what's
good
that?
news for you.
What
Is that if you follow the same pattern that I do, then your team will be absolute garbage next year because my team has been brutal this season. So better days are ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, the point is
It's a
that
lot better to not
the
lose
point
in the
is
playoffs
that
than lose in the
Allen
playoffs, right?
Allen Robinson type. The point is that because Aaron Jones completely, isn't free and just had a brutal fantasy performance.
Are you sure that's not just the Lions' defense, Matthew Berry? I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure.
Lions run defense.
Going into last night, going into last night, I was down 32 points
Ooh.
to Seth.
And who did you have?
He was done, and I had Kareem Hunt. So I almost pulled off a Monday Night Miracle, but in some ways I sort of wish that he had done nothing, and it's just, what are you going to do? You lose by 30. I lost by 3 points unless there's some sort of crazy weird stat correction here. And I'm praying for it, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm pretty sure.
Which one are you pinpointing?
I don't know. I'll take any of them. I'm trying to think. Here's a question for you that I had, though, that I was trying to wonder. If Kareem Hunt caught that 2-point conversion, that bounced off his shoulder, but that they ended up converting, is that a 3-point play or a 2-point play?
It does not count as a
Don't get
reception.
point as a reception. That's what I thought. I
points.
wasn't
No
sure
yards,
in our
catches.
scoring, right? If I had started Cole Kmet over Hayden Hurst, I would have won. I mean, other than that, but by the way, everything else,
it was your long shot.
Is now a bad time for me to say that I won a round of playoffs because of Kareem Hunt?
I'm thrilled for you, but yes, it is.
Congrats, Stephania.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
Nice job, Stephania.
Okay.
I won many.
I wanted to know because if I shouldn't bring it up that I won my playoffs because of Kareem Hunt, I won't. But I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm in 15 leagues. I was in the playoffs in 12 of them. One of them I lost to Stephania, by the way. Stephania beat me in, was it this show league?
The Celebrity League.
Oh, the Celebrity League that we're playing in. Yeah, so Stephania beat me in the playoffs there. It's a great.
By 50, but no
congratulations.
big deal.
Whatevs. Right, exactly. It's not a big deal. This is the league I care about. I'm just being honest. I'm letting you into my pain. I'm letting you in to my soul that was crushed last night. And the whole thing is I'm watching the game. Yeah. I'm watching the game, and my wife is like, oh, maybe you can get there. Oh, maybe. I'm like, no, you don't understand.
Supportive
33
wife.
points.
I love it.
It's anything. Right. Seth Marksman's texting me middle finger emojis. Yeah. He's trolling me. Mort's texting me being like, no, I think you can do this. Anyway, it was a roller coaster of emotions, Field Yates, and it's very upsetting because I had the best team in this league, and I'm not going to win. And so people out there that are in my boat, you feel me. I'm here for you. It happens. This is the life we've chosen. This is the game we play. #fantasy life. It is what it is. What are you going to do?
I've got a question for you, Matthew Berry. Understanding that you, unfortunately, are no longer in the playoffs, but there are teams that still have Kareem Hunt on their roster, and Kareem Hunt had 3 straight single-digit performances before this crazy breakout game. Are you trusting him next week, given the volatility that you've seen from Kareem Hunt in this Browns offense?
I don't know how you bench him after this performance. I think, by the way, that one of the like the touch differential is a little bit concerning here. But look, the Browns are a run-first team.
Yes.
The Browns want to run the ball, and they are most effective, weirdly, when they run both guys. Both guys are different kind of running backs, and they bring different looks. And it felt like last night they were running Chubb for a long time, and then Chubb was starting to get bottled up, and so they bring in Kareem Hunt, and Kareem Hunt is doing some more one-cut stuff, some more stuff that's bouncing outside, and that seemed to open it up again. So I just feel like what's best for the Browns running offense is both guys playing, and I don't know how you bench either guy after that performance. I think both guys, yes, they're locked. If assuming you're a Stephania Bell and you moved on in your playoffs thanks to Kareem Hunt as opposed to falling just short,
Right.
then yeah.
Once again, Stephania is the GOAT. We're going to come back with some news in just a moment.
By the way, it was almost a nightmare, Nate, for me. I have to one last thing here because I'm in this crazy expert league, a 12-team dynasty league.
How they let you in?
Well, thank you. And I don't know, I snuck in. So a bunch of super smart fantasy football experts, and somehow I snuck in under the wire. I weaseled my way in. And last year I won that. I had most points in that league, and that's the league that I lost by 1 point on that Aaron Jones Monday Night Football crazy 56-yard run against the Vikings. Lost by 1 point, super bitter. Anyway, this year once again I have the most points in the league, and I was playing Rich Rebar at Lord Reeves, and we love Rich. Rich is great, does a great job, great fantasy analyst. I was up 31 in PPR scoring against him. He had Nick Chubb left. And I was just like, oh no. Oh, you're like, am I going to lose to, I'm going to lose on a Monday Night Miracle to Nick Chubb, and then I'm going to fall just short with Kareem Hunt.
The Browns.
Luckily, Nick Chubb
to
wound up with like 29 points in our league scoring, so I ended up sneaking by Rich there. And so, anyway, thank goodness for that.
I play in 19 leagues. I made the playoffs in one, and I finished top 8 in another. Is that good?
That's
Dave?
pretty good. That's not bad.
My mom was telling me it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether you try your hardest.
Exactly.
So I really tried hard this year.
Yeah, your mom's not a fantasy player.
News coming up in just a moment, including a bunch of Thursday night preview, Thursday night game updates. But first, do you own or rent your home? Sure you do. And I bet it can be hard work. But you know what's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners or renters insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. So go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com.
Jacob's charge.
If you're missing the fun of the ballpark right now, you're not alone. But just because you can't be in the stadium doesn't mean you can't bring the classic ballpark feeling home. The best way to do that is with ballpark buns and rolls. Ballpark and the ballpark go together like baseball and summer. They're an American pastime and America's favorite buns and rolls, next to Field Yates, of course. They're an essential part of celebrations big and small. There's nothing worse than your bun breaking under the pressure. And guess what? Ballpark buns and rolls never, ever fall apart. They're always freshly baked, always soft, and always delicious. Ballpark buns and rolls are a great way to get a carefree taste of summer any time of year. Whether shared at a backyard barbecue, fall tailgate, or any manner of celebration year-round, you can't help but enjoy yourself when enjoying a ballpark bun creation. So next time you're picking up essentials for grilling, tailgating, a little slow cooker action, or maybe just a nostalgic night in, make sure you grab ballpark buns and rolls. You can find them wherever you shop for groceries.
Hey,
Wow, pull a Field Yates.
My
there,
job.
Matthew Berry.
but it doesn't matter. What I mean, whatever. It's like the fourth worst thing that could have happened to me today. Two quick things here. Just to wrap up the Browns for a second. They play the Giants next week, but they play the Jets in Week 16.
So juicy.
And
so juicy. That's your
I do
Baker
think
spot.
you're right. I was going to say, like, Baker's not – I wouldn't mind, especially if you've been sort of playing musical quarterbacks, I wouldn't mind grabbing Baker or grabbing Rashard Higgins, who, by the way, is a top 10 wide receiver the last 2 weeks, right? He's got consecutive games with 6 catches and a touchdown. Remember, the Browns had a bad stretch there where they had that brutal weather in Cleveland, but now they've been on the road, and their passing game has been getting going, and obviously last night it looked great as well. I do think Higgins is a talented player. I know they like him there in Cleveland, and he has a connection with Baker. And so just looking at that Week 16 championship game against the Jets, even if you're like, I don't need them, I'm good, I have defensive. Like, again, think if you're, that's a perfectly legitimate strategy. Sometimes the best offense is a defense. Like, even if you're not going to use them, you don't want them used against you. So just that's a heads up there as well. And I'd like to hear from everyone. Thirsty Kyle, let's do a poll here. You're out of the playoffs in the league that we play in, so you've got some time here.
Not nice.
Can you do a poll real quickly? Just have you ever been in that situation? I just want to find out how many people have been in the situation I have, where you were number one in the league. You were, you had the most points the whole time, and then you lose in the first round of the playoffs. By the way, I had the second most points of the week. Like, if I'd played any other team in the playoffs, I win. But I played the guy, that got 20 points from his defense, and, an insane game from Cam Akers, the first game all year where he's done anything, and, whatever. What are you going to do? Fantasy
What
life.
are you
and
going
Aaron
to
Jones
do?
didn't do anything.
Let's keep
And
things rolling. We have a
And I'm not
ton
bitter.
to
I'm
get.
not
We
bitter
gotta
at
keep
all.
it
I will
rolling.
be
Picking up
talking
the
about
pace
this a
here.
year
Thank
from
you.
now.
Thank you. We got to keep it going. Let's pick up the pace here, and we head over to Stephania for some updates. Stephania, I have not yet checked his Instagram stories, but from what I can tell, Josh Jacobs would have been limited if the Raiders did practice on Monday. They play on Thursday. You confident he'll be there?
Way to poke the bear field. I think he will be. They listed him as limited, but look, neither team that's playing on Thursday night practiced on Monday. They're just trying to get guys healthy enough to play on Thursday night. The fact that they didn't list him as a non-practicing player, I think, is encouraging. So, yeah, I do expect him to be out there, but, of course, double check.
There we go. Good news there that he.
Should I write about Josh Jacobs?
Yeah,
for
sure, go
Thursday's
for it.
Love-Hate?
Probably not.
I'm asking.
I don't
I
think.
think you
so.
should write about your loss yesterday.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do that.
I don't think you spent enough time on it.
I wasn't going to do it, but Field baited me into it.
Yeah, I
was like,
know.
you really want me to get in
I
this?
know.
Because if I get rolling, it's going to go.
It's tough.
You guys have worked with me long enough. You want to
You're
talk about
aware.
poking the bear? Like, you know what you're getting into. That's when you open that door.
Oh, my bad. My bad.
Listen, Hosty McHosterson over there. You understand what happens when you open that door. I don't know. I don't know. Like, Josh Jacobs is the guy I was rooting for in a big way, and I'm not a fan anymore. I don't
Okay,
know.
Well, we can talk about that later. Let's get through the rest of the updates here. Stephania, the Chargers, a bunch. I mean, basically half the team is on the injury report. What do we know? Let's start with Austin Eckler.
Yeah, they listed 12 players as non-practicing on Monday's practice report, which was, of course, was just an estimate because none of them played. So I'll just run through them all because I think that's easier. Austin Eckler listed with a quad issue. Obviously, we're paying close attention to his soft tissue injury for Austin Eckler because of all the time he missed because of his hamstring. Not overly concerned just yet. Keenan Allen on the injury report because of his hamstring. Now, after the game, Anthony Lynn said he had soreness. It was kind of generalized, but the official injury report lists him because of his hamstring. We shall see. Mike Williams only played 2 snaps because of a back injury. So to me, he might be the most questionable of all the questionables for the Chargers. Hunter Henry also listed because of a hip issue, but that did not appear to be as serious.
Okay, that is good news for Hunter Henry at the very least. We'll see on Thursday. Again, we have a show on Fridays. We'll have more updates before this game. That's what Twitter is for.
That's right.
Also, TikTok for those looking for @MatthewBerryTMR. Let's now
Yes.
get to the weekend updates, Stephania and Matthew Stafford.
Come offer me condolences on the talk.
I will be sure to do so.
Do
Matthew
the kids
Stafford.
call it the talk, Stefania?
I wouldn't know. Not on TikTok yet. I don't have kids to impress, so haven't
Secret
been
Scroll, do
there.
they call it the talk?
I have no idea, Matthew Berry. I'm
All right.
sorry.
They
Fair
call
enough.
it TikTok. Stephania, Matthew Stafford got banged up and left Sunday's game. Meant Chase Daniel coming in at quarterback. What do we know about his ribs?
Well, the report is that the x-rays that he took came back negative. Now, it's worth noting that sometimes rib fractures do not show up on x-ray. You have to see them through more detailed imaging. I don't know if that's in store. I will just say that right now, we're still in limbo on Matthew Stafford's status.
More to come on Friday, and of course, what it would mean for someone like Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay if he ever plays again. Drew Brees, Stephania, a huge game on Sunday, and I mean huge. Chiefs.
Do we think Kenny Galladay's ever playing again?
Well, ever or in
Stefania
2020?
this year in 2020. Like he's a free
It's
agent
hard
at the end of
to
this year,
hard
right?
to
Is a
see
free
it,
agent?
right?
Yep.
It's hard to imagine it.
You think this is a business decision on some level?
I don't know. I don't want to surmise either because it's
Yeah,
unfair to the
I
player.
just would say after this long, it certainly doesn't appear likely, but
Right.
Who's to say?
Who is to say?
Who is to say? But Stephania, I can say this. It's a huge game on Sunday. The Chiefs and the Saints, the two teams on identical records since the start of 2018, the best in the NFL, 36-9. Will the Saints have their quarterback? And I don't mean Taysom Hill. I mean Drew Brees.
I'm going to expect that it's likely going to be Taysom Hill. I know Drew Brees wants to come back as quickly as possible. We've talked multiple times on the show about how, given the nature of his injury with 11 fractures, they're going to make sure that they're comfortable with his health, not only as far as healing from the ribs, but conditioning before he gets in a game. So if he's not practicing on Wednesday, when the first team practice report comes out for the weekend games, I'd be thinking that it's going to be at least another week.
Okay, we will see on that one. How about this? Good news. Not really a medical thing, but Gardner Minshew is back as the quarterback for the Jaguars. Like to see the mustache back, and I don't know there's a ton of fantasy relevance here, to be honest with you. Keelan Cole led all wide receivers for the Jaguars with 12.1 points per game in the games played with Gardner Minshew. He's also been so up and down. He's had like 6 good games this year, then 6 games or 7 games that have been not good at all. More starting quarterback news, though, is that
James Robinson's the only Jaguar you're starting here. They're playing at the Ravens. Yeah. I mean, even though the Ravens defense ain't the Ravens defense anymore, Robinson's the only guy you can trust here.
Jalen Hurts will be once again the Eagles quarterback on Sunday. As we saw, what it meant was he himself has some value potentially, Matthew. As we're discussing the possibility of Baker Mayfield, you mentioned, hey, I prefer Jalen Hurts, for example. What we saw on Sunday was that the rushing value, right? It unlocks his floor. He had over 100 rushing yards, had 1 passing touchdown. Jalen Hurts sort of a top 15 to 16 option in my estimation this week.
Yeah, and potentially even higher. I mean, again, the rushing just keeps your floor high. We've seen it with Taysom Hill, as well, right? I mean, just, in Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson last night, again, like rushing quarterbacks get a lot of fantasy points. And so, if Jalen Hurts can do that in his first start against the Saints, the Cardinals defense obviously had a big game against the Giants, but the Cardinals defense is not one that scares me as much as the Saints does. I think this is a better matchup for Jalen Hurts. It's another week where he's been given confidence by the staff. Like, you're the guy. Okay, you got through it. You got through your one game. You got the win. And you've heard some players talking about his leadership. And so, yeah, I do. I think Jalen Hurts is a very viable streamer this week if you're desperate for quarterback. If you're like, hey, if we don't have Matthew Stafford, kind of thing. If you've been rolling the Stafford, So, yes.
Stephania, Ronald Jones now banged up for the Buccaneers. Maybe Leonard Fournette will be back sooner rather than later into the lineup. What's going on with him?
Well, it sounds like he had a finger injury, potentially a fracture to his pinky. No detail released yet as far as his injury goes, but it's interesting to note that he did play through it. He did not leave the game as a result. So it really depends what they decide as far as treatment goes. The main concern when you have a finger injury is always ball control, and as we know, that has been an issue for Ronald Jones. So I think if there was some worry that this would impact that, that would be the concern here.
More to come on Friday, specifically if he misses all week in practice. It might be Leonard Fournette, it might be LaShawn McCoy, could be Keyshawn Vaughn. We'll get into that more later on this week. Raheem Mostert, Stephania, was back or has been back for a couple of games, and now he's banged up once again.
I feel like I always need to take a deep breath before we start on the 49ers injury reports because they're so bad. I mean, this is a guy who had a high ankle sprain that already cost him time this season and actually spoke to reporters before this week's game about the fact that his ankle was still bothering him. He'd only put up 85 yards in 2 games since he'd come back from being on the injury report due to that ankle. And he said he expected it to be there, that it would nag at him, but he was just going to have to try and play through it. Well, obviously something happened and it was worse during this game, and he was expected to undergo further evaluation to determine if he actually had a setback that was visible on imaging. Kyle Shanahan said they would have more information on Wednesday, and so we probably won't know much more until then.
Okay, interesting. Jeff Wilson Jr. could be kind of an interesting pickup this week then.
1,000%. Like, he's looked good in limited time
He does
here.
look good. Oh, yeah.
Like, he's somebody that has some scoring equity, obviously, and doesn't seem like Jerick McKinnon is a thing at all anymore.
Evan Coleman, not really either.
No, either. So, by the way, the 49ers are at the Cowboys. Like, you love that matchup, And so, yeah, I mean, Jeff Wilson Jr. is a priority on the waiver wire, I would think.
Yeah, I got to re-up. I didn't, I was not quite aware of how sketchy Raheem Mostert's status was for this week. Obviously, a lot more information coming on Wednesday. But
listen,
Jeff Wilson Jr.
when you're talking running back injuries,
yep.
When you're talking 49er injuries,
yeah,
is there anyone on the planet more dialed in than Stephania Bell?
I asked her.
Yeah,
that's why
I mean, like, again, Stephania glued to the set on Sunday watching the 49ers lose to, the Washington professional football team, in a home game that they really needed to win, and they didn't, against Washington. Kyle Shanahan wanted, revenge against his former team, and didn't happen. Trent Williams wanted revenge against his former team. Didn't happen, Stephania. But you saw every play of that, right?
I did.
Stephania, you were focused. You were laser focused on that.
You can't hurt me any
that
worse.
loss.
You can't hurt me any worse because the 49ers, it's been pain since week 2. We had week 1, but from week 2 on, it's been painful. So
Right.
I have accepted it. I'm at peace with it, and I'm looking forward to next year.
A ton more
Right.
information here, so let's keep it rolling, Stephania. His
Yeah.
teammate, Deebo Samuel, another one of those years that just hasn't been anywhere close to playing for
a
49ers
hamstring
throwback.
injury
Yeah.
that he is going to miss the rest of the regular season and only would come back if there was playoff potential for the 49ers, which, given the division, there's still this slight glimmer of hope that they could sneak their way in, although we don't think it's likely. But Deebo Samuel, another guy who was hurt earlier in the year, started off the season coming back from foot surgery, had a hamstring injury subsequently. Now has aggravated that hamstring injury. What's really interesting is just talking about the 49ers injuries overall, because Jimmy Garoppolo, they're talking about, could Jimmy Garoppolo come back to practice and potentially be the quarterback? Not that is super helpful for fantasy purposes, but it's just worth noting. Nick Wagner, who covers the team for us, tweeted this, and I just thought it was perfect in terms of capturing the season. Said that Kyle Shanahan said Jimmy Garoppolo had the worst high ankle injury of the team, and wide receiver Juwan Jennings had the worst hamstring injury, pointing out that there are so many of them that they can actually rank the severity within the team. That's how bad it's been.
It's been just an unbelievable spell of bad luck for the 49ers. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk has been a star, though, in the absence of Deebo Samuel.
17.5 fantasy points over each of the last 5 games for Brandon Ayuk. By the way, still available in 16% of ESPN leagues. So, not in a lot of leagues out there, but maybe
So take a look.
just worth looking to see if for somehow he is out there, because obviously with no Deebo Samuel, he will continue to get a ton of looks. Very talented player for a team that has a glimmer of playoff hope, as Stephania says, a glimmer that was brighter a week ago before they lost to the Washington Professional Football Team in crushing fashion.
Stephania, how about DJ Moore? He missed last week, of course, after being placed on the COVID-19 list. Can we expect him back this week?
It sounds like they do expect him back. He would have to be activated off that reserve COVID-19 list for Saturday's game, but it sounds like they are hopeful that he will come back. Obviously, Curtis Samuel came back. He would be back next.
And Stephania did not misspeak. There's a doubleheader on Saturday. The Bills, Broncos, plus the Packers and the Panthers, afternoon and evening slate. Speaking of the Broncos, Stephania, Noah Fant left really early in that game for Denver. There's some good news, though, in that we can rule out COVID now.
Right. And he tested negative for COVID. Remember, they are doing same-day game testing for these players now. He left early in the game due to illness, and that had everybody nervous. Vic Fangio said he thought it was food poisoning. Not pleasant, no matter what, but usually something you can recover from within a day or two.
Okay, that is good news there, as he should be available on Saturday for Denver. Mike Gesicki, Stephania, we talked about him yesterday, left the game for the Dolphins. So we have any updated sense about what could be happening?
Not yet. He was going for further evaluation. Team hasn't released anything specific. We had noted that Tua's comments were a bit ominous, saying that Mike Gesicki was really hurting. He was in a ton of pain, and that you felt badly. I think Tua's words were, you hate to see something like that happen for a guy like that, which certainly implied that there would be time missed. But again, stay tuned for updates. Probably won't come before either later today or Wednesday.
Go make plans at tight end for at least 1 week. Logan Thomas available in a bunch of leagues.
Before we move on from the injury thing, I just want to say one more thing. This goes back to last night's game with Lamar Jackson. Lisa Salters had a really interesting note. Lamar Jackson obviously had tested positive for COVID-19. We've talked on this show about when players miss time due to COVID-19, how the experience can be different for different players. And she was saying that, he had said after last week's game that he was unusually tired, just did not feel like himself, and had thought that maybe coming into this game, he was starting to feel better. And obviously he left for a period of time because of cramping, despite what all the commentary was. He was getting IVs. They actually put him in a cold bath, he said. But the issue is that even when players come off the COVID-19 list, there's still some adjustment, especially when it comes to conditioning. So it's just something to be mindful of, that just because they're off the list doesn't necessarily mean that you get 100% of them right away.
Well, Lamar Jackson, as you mentioned, he got the brunt of the internet last night for going in for cramps. The internet had different thoughts on what he was actually dealing with, but it didn't limit him too much in the fantasy box score with nearly 35 points. We're going to play a game of
A lot of people were
Dumpsville.
comparing him to Paul Pierce.
Right.
You know, I saw that.
Yes.
I don't think Paul Pierce was actually really hurt. Can we litigate that back? I understand I'm a bitter Lakers fan.
Right. Yeah. No.
I never thought Paul Pierce was
No, that-
legitimate hurt.
Let's do that on tomorrow's show.
Oh, tomorrow's show?
Tomorrow's show.
Okay.
Dumpsville
Just saying.
next.
I just want to hear from people. Like,
Right.
anyone else agree with me on that take? I'm just saying, like, I don't know. He came back really quickly from what was supposed to be like a season-ending injury, and like he was out one play. Suddenly he's limping back on. I don't know. Anyway.
He's
Okay.
flexible, just like businesses have had to be flexible this year, from working remotely to pivoting their business models for long-term survival and growth. If you're in charge of hiring for your business, these pivots have made your job even more challenging, especially if you have to hire for brand new roles. Thankfully, there's one place that you can always count on to make hiring faster and easier. ZipRecruiter.com/06010. When you post a job on ZipRecruiter, it gets sent out to over 100 top job boards with one click. Then ZipRecruiter's powerful technology finds people with the right skills and experience for your job and actively invites them to apply. It's no wonder that 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself right now. You can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/06010. That's ZipRecruiter.com/06010. Let ZipRecruiter take hiring off your plate so you can focus on growing your business. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/06010. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Truly Lemonade is a refreshing mix of lemonade and hard seltzer that is perfect for game day. If life or your fantasy lineup gives you lemons, like being 10-3 with the most points scored in the league and still losing in the first round of the playoffs, make lemonade. Maybe even win your matchup with a surprise standout and keep the good times going with Truly. Bring the flavor of game day as only you can, and we'll keep it light, crisp, and crushable. Truly Lemonade comes in 4 refreshing flavors: original, strawberry, mango, and black cherry. Truly hard seltzer. Live truly.
All right, let's get into a game of Dumpsville as we break out the handy dandy iPad, and it's week 15. You kind of know what you have and what you need to make it through the rest of your season. So it shouldn't be that difficult to decide whether to drop
Free Aaron
or keep
Jones.
these people. Okay. Let's begin with Cam Newton. Cam Newton coming off of a clunker of a game for the Patriots, and they now play the Dolphins on Sunday.
No.
I'm dropping
The
Cam.
Saints.
Bye-bye.
Cam Newton.
Oh, Cam Newton. I'm sorry. I thought you said someone else. Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Cam
and
Newton.
Newton's who I said, yeah. Cam Newton, the Patriots play the Dolphins on Sunday. That Dolphins defense just gave Patrick Mahomes all sorts of fits. Yes, you can drop Cam Newton.
Correct.
But Devin Singletary, this is kind of interesting one because running backs are so hard to find. He hasn't been great, but he also hasn't been, like, completely atrocious. I don't know. Devin Singletary, keep or drop?
For me, he's a dump.
This could be
Like,
a pretty-
here's the thing. Like, I'm not convinced there's as much of a floor there as you think there is, and I think there's very little upside, barring Zach Moss fumbling on the first play of the game.
Right.
Right. I feel like Zach Moss is to be honest, I feel like the Buffalo running back you want is named Josh Allen. That's the goal line running back you want, and I just feel like that's a passing offense, and like in the playoffs, like you want to swing, you want safe, but you also want some upside there, and I feel there's literally no upside with Devin Singletary.
Yeah.
You want the potential for a Cam Akers or a Kareem Hunt or a guy like that could go off and win you your week. You know what I mean? Like I don't see that with Devin Singletary at all. Certainly not at Denver and at New England the next 2 weeks. For me, he's a dump.
Okay, how about Darrell Henderson, who played, like 6 snaps last week for the Rams?
I mean, yeah.
Drop.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
mean,
listen-
this is obvious. Look, Cam Akers is going to have to really screw up to lose this job in the next 3 weeks.
I would agree on that. Le'Veon Bell for the Chiefs. Yeah, you know the answer here. You can drop him. I guess the only question will be, is he an insurance policy?
That's
keep?
what I was going to say. Like,
we'll move him over
you
to
know,
keep.
to me, I think the Le'Veon Bell, Latavius Murray, Tony Pollard to an extent, Alexander Madison, even though I know he's missed the last 2 weeks. Like,
Right.
I feel like those guys need to be rostered in 100% of leagues because Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook, et cetera, are rostered in 100% of leagues. And so if Clyde Edwards-Helaire was out and you knew Le'Veon Bell was going to get 15 touches in an Andy Reid offense, you'd feel decent about starting him. So I don't think he's a dump if you have CEH.
Yeah, we're staying busy here on the drop side. As James White has been moved over there for me. Really, really solid player, but just not nearly the passing game impact this season in a new Patriots offense. If there's a Patriots running back you want to have, it is, of course, Damian Harris. How about DJ Chark, Matthew? Disappointing year this year.
It's been a disappointing year. And, you sit here, you look, he's at Baltimore next week and then home to Chicago. You don't love either one of those matchups. Is Peters on him this week? And you just don't know what we're going to get out of Minshew. Like, could he be great? Could he? Here's what I will say. Look at your roster. If you're not definitely starting DJ Chark this week, drop him.
Okay. I'll put him in the keep folder only because, like you said, only if you absolutely need the roster spot. How about CeeDee Lamb? He was so promising earlier on this year. Obviously, the quarterback injury to Dak Prescott changed everything. Keep or drop?
I'm going to go ahead and keep him. You know what I mean? Like, that offense is starting to show some signs of life. Niners and Eagles, neither of whom scares you in terms of slot receiving defense. So, decent schedule coming up.
Mike Williams for the Chargers, Stephania told us earlier, a little bit banged up. Also, Justin Herbert, 3 straight games of under 16.5 fantasy points. Keep or drop?
Yeah, I don't have a problem dropping him either. He's one of those, he's big play dependent. He's big play dependent. And with Austin Eckler back for the Chargers, they have not had nearly as many big plays. When Justin Herbert's in trouble, he's not extending the play and chucking it down the field. He's dumping it off to Austin Eckler, which makes tons of sense football-wise. Doesn't help you if you have Mike Williams.
How about Christian Kirk, who's been quiet recently for the Arizona Cardinals? 5.2 fantasy points per game over his past 5 games and under 20 yards in 3 straight games. You know the answer. Bye-bye. Nice to have you on the roster earlier this year. You had a couple of solid games, but right now that Cardinals passing offense is basically DeAndre Hopkins or nobody. Hayden Hurst, I'm keeping Hayden Hurst. It's really hard to find tight ends. I know he wasn't great this past week. He's been under 2 fantasy points in 2 straight games, but, I don't know.
He catches 1 ball for 20 yards, and I'm moving on to week 15. All I needed was 4 points, Hayden Hurst.
Come on.
He got 1.7. I just needed 4 points.
Well,
4 points.
Better luck next year. How about Zach Ertz?
Yeah, I'm dumping him. The offense is seeming to, obviously take a step forward with Jalen Hurts, but we haven't seen Zach Ertz look like Zach Ertz in capital letters. I don't know that you can't start him this week because you need to see it at least once, I think, before you start him. And so then you're like, are you hanging on to him for the week 16 game at Dallas? Maybe. Potentially could see that, but I don't know. If you need the roster spot, wouldn't have an issue with that.
Agreed on that. So there is your Dumpsville. A lot of dumps today. A lot of players. This time of the year, again, it's this time of the year. You kind of know what you need and what a player is expected to be. Time now for some waiver wire.
Hey, before we get to the waiver wire real quickly, just want to get Stephania's reaction to this. Just got an alert. Rick Stroud tweeting that the Buccaneers running back Ronald Jones is scheduled today to have a surgical procedure to have a pin placed in his broken pinky finger. So just your reaction to that, Stephania, real quick.
Well, we don't know where, we don't know the nature of the exact injury, so there are a lot of details around it that might determine what is next. But I believe Chris Godwin had a procedure on a Tuesday and missed that week. If you go back to when he fractured his index finger, really the number one issue right away is wound healing as well. So obviously we'll monitor this, but I would at least plan on the possibility that you don't have Ronald Jones this week.
Okay, there you go. Potentially no Ronald Jones this week for Bucks or you in your fantasy lineup.
All the more reason to pay attention now to Field Yates and the waiver wire pickups because there you might need a running back, Field Yates.
Well, let's start with quarterbacks.
Yes, sir.
One of those. And Lemons and Lemonade is brought to you by Truly Hard Seltzer. Truly Lemonade is a refreshing mix of lemonade and hard seltzer that is perfect for game day. If life or your fantasy lineup gives you lemons, make lemonade and keep the good times going with Truly. Truly Hard Seltzer. Live truly. And this week's quarterback waiver wire ad is Jalen Hurts, available in 92% of leagues, 167 passing yards and a touchdown this past week in his starting debut, plus 106 rushing yards, 19.3 fantasy points. The Washington defense in Week 17 is the most difficult matchup he has left on his schedule, Matthew. But as we know, with rushing upside, anything is possible for a quarterback. He could certainly find his way to 12 or 14 fantasy points in a game in which he plays poorly. if you expect him to play well, he could creep up to 18 to 20 fantasy.
9 of the top 15 fantasy quarterbacks right now averaging at least 18 rushing yards per game, considering he had over 100 in his debut as a starter. I certainly think he clears that bar. I like Jalen Hurts. I like Jalen Hurts for the Eagles. I like Jalen Hurts fantasy-wise. I like him NFL-wise. And again, he's one of those guys that I would want to make a priority on the waiver wire, because even if you don't use him, you don't want somebody using him against you. Remember, Week 16, the Eagles play the Cowboys. Jalen Hurts put another good game together this week against the Cardinals. He becomes really interesting in championship games against the Cowboys.
Let's get to running backs. We mentioned Jeff Wilson Jr. for the 49ers, certainly a player you want to be adding if you have the opportunity. Others include DeAndre Washington. Now, I get it. It wasn't a particularly robust performance. In Week 14, he had 35 rushing yards on 13 carries, but it's the 13 carries that you care about. He had 13 of Miami's 18 running back carries. He got all 6 in the first quarter. Does not sound like they'll have Myles Gaskin on Sunday against the Patriots. It's not a super high upside add, but DeAndre Washington is a running back you need to consider if you need the depth, as is Lynn Bowden Jr., his teammate for the Dolphins, who's available in 99.5% of leagues. He is eligible to be played at running back and wide receiver this week on ESPN.com. And he had 9 targets this past week, good for 7 catches and 82 yards, just as we were saying yesterday, Matthew. He looked like the player that we saw at Kentucky when he was a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, a do-it-all man for their offense.
And more importantly, he qualifies at running back in our game. So even though he's going to play mostly wide receiver for the Dolphins, as you noted, like, you could use him as a running back if you're desperate. I actually prefer, if you're rostering a Dolphins running back, quote-unquote running back, I prefer Bowden to Washington, because there's a chance, as Stephania mentioned yesterday, that we see Savon Ahmed back this week for Miami.
Let's get to some wide receiver ads. And Chad Hansen is not even on the Texans' active roster yet, but he is available in 99% of fantasy leagues and a worthwhile addition. 7 catches for 12.6 fantasy points this past week. He's got 7 targets in each of the past 2 games. He's run a route on over 3/4 of all Deshaun Watson dropbacks in those 2 games. I don't know if I can call it chemistry. They've been together for 2 weeks, but it seems like Deshaun Watson has more trust in him than any other Texans pass catcher that is currently healthy. And we'll see on Brandon Cooks whether he is available this upcoming week. He, of course, missed last week's game.
Yeah, Adam Schefter's long shot on Sunday on Fantasy Football Now. Good call by Shefty. And they play the Colts this week. As we saw with the rate, there have been some sort of leaks in that Colts defense after being so strong recently. Obviously, the Raiders put some points up on them. And so we know the Texans are going to have to throw in this game. And when you don't have many options to throw to, Chad Hansen suddenly becomes an interesting guy.
How about Nelson Aguilar over the past 4 weeks?
Yeah.
He has 34 targets over the past 4 weeks. He has been so incredibly busy. That's 8.8 targets per game for Aguilar. Maybe it's 36 targets, my bad there. But the point is, he has been incredibly busy for the Las Vegas Raiders. He has been super up and down this year. He's had like 5 or 6 really good games, and then basically the same number of games that would be fantasy irrelevant. It's really tough to decide when to play him, but a player who has actually performed pretty well this year, been one of the best free agent signings in terms of value this offseason. So if you're willing to swing for the fences, this would be an opportunity to do so.
He's in the Thursday night game against the Chargers, and it feels like that when teams focus on taking away Darren Waller in that passing attack, he's the next guy up. You know what I mean? They've taken a couple of shots to Ruggs or Edwards, and obviously you've got Hunter Renfrow there. But Aguilar, to me, has established himself, and it's actually just, by the way, a nice story.
Yeah.
After an up and down career in Philadelphia, feels like he's rediscovered his career and kind of resurrected it, I should say, with the Las Vegas Raiders.
I would agree on that. So I'm going to use Tim Patrick to bring me right to the touchscreen, rank our 5 ads of the week, and I'm going to own this right away. My bad on not having Jeff Wilson Jr. He would be part of my top 5 if I were to have him as part of the 10 names available in this touchscreen. Let's start, though, at number 5. In just a moment here, I'm going to move over a guy who in each of his past 5 games in which he's had a quarterback available to him, he has at least 10 fantasy points. That's right, Tim Patrick. Over his past 6 games in total, he has 10-plus fantasy points in all of them. The only exception was when he didn't have anybody other than Kendall Hinton available. So he's number 5 on the waiver wire. He's a big play threat. He is good in the red zone. He has found the end zone plenty of times this year.
And by the way, I mean, like, Drew Lock seems to really like him. You know what I mean? He's taken over that Cortland Sutton role in that offense.
Nelson Aguilar, we just talked about him. I think if you are in a 2-week semifinal, and basically what you're looking at is like a 40-point deficit or some ridiculous deficit, and you're saying to yourself, I don't win by just like trotting out the same players that I have recently. Maybe here's an example of somebody. Like if you picked up Jacoby Myers midseason and you rode the wave and he was pretty solid for you, like Jacoby Myers is not the kind of wide receiver right now that I think I want to have if you're down by 30 to 40 points. You need to swing for more. Nelson Aguilar is the kind of guy that I would be looking to swing for more with this week. DeAndre Washington, we talked about him. Again, if you're looking for a pure running back, and he, I think, is going to lead the Dolphins in running back carries again. We'll see if Savon Ahmed's available. Doesn't sound like Myles Gaskin will be available. I think the matchup is okay against the Patriots. They could not find an answer last week for Cam Akers, obviously. But I think they'll be a little bit tighter up against DeAndre Washington with a less potent passing attack to worry about from Miami. Chad Hansen, who has been well-traveled. I mean, the guy's been all over practice squads, entered the league with the Jets, a third-round pick. I think he's with the Saints, the Patriots, a couple other stops along the way, now with the Texans.
He interned for Daniel for like 2 weeks here.
Really?
Yeah.
How did he do? Was he good?
Yeah, he was pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Showed some promise?
Just reliable and there when you needed him, you know?
Well, that's a good reason to pick him up off the waiver wire as well. As we mentioned, back-to-back games with 7 targets, 7 catches this past week. And even if Brandon Cooks returns, if he is the number 2 or the number 3 wide receiver for Deshaun Watson, it's possible he'd get you the 10 fantasy points you might need.
The Texans can't run the ball. They haven't run the ball effectively all year long. Yeah. The way they're moving the ball is through the air, either Deshaun Watson running it or throwing it. And so in a game in which I feel they're going to need to put up points because their defense is so bad, I do think Hansen is a viable candidate for, like, get you 10 fantasy points with, potential touchdown.
One more here is Lynn Bowden Jr., of course, the Dolphins' utility player, running back and wide receiver eligible here at ESPN. Very fun player to watch during his time in Kentucky. Last week, he had 7 catches. He actually had 2 separate plays the Dolphins dialed up where he was intending to throw the ball. I think on both opportunities, because the defense sniffed it out, he was unable to actually throw it. But the point is that he's got a lot of different ways in which he can potentially get you some fantasy points. Lynn Bowden Jr., a fun, interesting name for Week 15. Good luck to those that are still alive in the playoffs. Big week ahead, Daniel Dopp.
Heck yeah, man. How about we do a couple of quick social questions and a trivia to end this one out real fast?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Geico social questions. Whether you rent or own your home, Geico makes it easy to bundle home and car insurance. Having a home is hard work, so get a quote at geico.com. It's easy. All right, first question comes from Biggie Thompson 13. Was the Miles Sanders game a fluke, or should we expect more going forward? 1 sentence answers. Fluke, or are you expecting this going forward?
Expecting more volume going forward.
I would agree with that. Matchups are nice as well, and running quarterbacks open up that offense.
All right. Robbie Lamenza wants to know, is Deontay Johnson a must-start given the stable volume?
Yeah, but catch the ball, Deontay. It's your job.
See, I don't think he's a must-start. Now, I think you're likely starting him because he's still getting a lot of volume, and they're playing the Bengals on Monday night, but I don't think he's a must-start. The drops are concerning, as are the number of mouths to feed in a Steelers offense that honestly looks broken.
Okay. Gary Silkwood wants to know, should I consider Akers or DeAndre Swift over Aaron Jones moving forward?
I would consider Cam Akers over him this week. They're playing the Jets.
Yeah, listen, the Jets have believe it or not, actually not a terrible run defense, but I think if I had those 3 guys, I would start Cam Akers and Aaron Jones.
Okay. All right, last
not DeAndre
one.
Swift. DeAndre Swift would be who I bench of those 3.
Last social question comes from Return of the Bud. Who do you like more to bounce back, Corey Davis or Chase Claypool?
Give me Chase Claypool against the Bengals.
Yeah, probably, especially given that. But Corey Davis has a good matchup too. They play. Who do they play? The Vikings, I think.
I believe
right?
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Titans are no. They're playing your Lions. Your terrible Detroit Lions.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I have Corey Davis and A.J. Brown both ranked top 20 wide receivers this week. Derrick Henry is the number 1 rated running back this week. Jonnu Smith might be the number 1 rated tight end for me this week. Who knows with the way that the Lions defense
I might
is.
say, listen, I know Corey Davis had the bad game, but I actually think I might trust Corey Davis more than Chase Claypool. Like Claypool could have the monster game, but again, they have Juju, they have Ebron, Deontay. They're trying to get him going. James Washington's getting a lot of snaps recently, so I might actually say Corey Davis. I think it's a more narrow target tree. They both have great matchups.
All right, let's bring it on with one trivia question.
That's right. We're going to send it out to Kyle for a Geico trivia of the day.
I got you covered. I want you guys to name for me the one receiver that has 10 games with at least 70 receiving yards this season.
One receiver with 10 games of 70 receiving yards this season. We have 1 minute. I am going to guess.
Let's see. Can't be Julio.
See, and like you, Devontae Adams is the obvious guy, but then you think, well, he missed a couple of games there.
Yeah.
So I don't know that does he have 10 games? Has he played 10 games?
I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson. I have no idea. We got 30 seconds left. You have to
I'm going to say Corey Davis.
I'm going to say Cole Beasley.
Ooh, that's a good one right there. Stephania?
I'm just clueless.
Brandon Ayuk.
Stephania
Stephania says Brandon Ayuk.
No, he hasn't even played 10 games.
Kyle, what do you got?
Go ahead.
Justin Jefferson, the best of the guesses, but not right. Allen Robinson has 10 such games.
Always underrated
Pride,
Allen Robinson that we
Penn
don't
State.
even think of him.
I literally thought
What a
about Allen
guy.
Robinson, and then I thought,
No, you didn't.
Hashtag.
I did. I swear to God. Like,
And then
I would
thought,
admit it. Like,
"Nah."
what are you doing? What are you doing?
We are
I would
back
totally
again
admit it.
Friday. We
Friday.
are back on Friday. Full
Friday.
preview. We will see you on Friday for Matthew and Stephania and Daniel. I will talk to you guys then. Good luck
Get
with
those waiver
Everything
claims
is-
in. Stay safe, everyone. For all of us here at the 06010. Kareem Hunt, I just needed 3 more points. Peace out.
See you in the 06010.